head to Atlanta. That's where the Hawks are staying. This game was actually in Miami, though. No Kyle Lowry, no Jimmy Butler, barely there. Trae Young, 2 for 12 from the field, 0 for 5 from deep. Nick, did Trae's superstar status take a step backwards this postseason?
Well, yeah, he doesn't have superstar status. He tried to sneak in club superstar wilds after the playoff performance last year. But they caught him. They found him right before he got in. And in fact, he got a 1-year ban. So he's not even allowed to reapply until after the playoffs next year. So he can stay in line. He can ask. But no. There is nothing. And I think Trae's going to be an excellent player in this league. And one day might be a superstar. But there is nothing Trae Young can do until next year's postseason to redeem this year's postseason. Because the knock on him, Brew, prior to last year's playoff run was good stats, bad team. There's a big Bill Simmons thing, Wilds, that he talks about a lot, and he's not wrong. Good stats, bad team guy. But last year, he couldn't say it because the Hawks were a good-ish team, and then in the playoffs, they made damn conference finals. It's like, it's good stats, great stats, good team. But then this year in the regular season, they were mediocre. He had, led the league in total points, led the league in total assists, but the team was mediocre. And then we can show you right now, Brew, this is just a indefensibly bad playoff run. 31% from the field, 18% from three. Last night it was a 3-point game. In the last minute, Trae could do nothing. There have been 85. Listen, PER, Brew, is not everything, and it can be misleading at times, but sometimes it's a good indicator. 85 guys in these playoffs have played at least 100 minutes. Trae Young's PER is 84th, or was 84th. He's done now. So, no, this doesn't, it's not a career-long indictment. But in the short term, of course he takes a hit. He was, I think you could argue, the single worst performer of this postseason so far.
Wow. Well, yeah, certainly among stars. There's no doubt about it. And look, I think this is good for Trae. I think this is good for him. He needed this because Trae was riding a high, right? He came into New York and plays the Reggie Miller card and just, destroys the Garden, takes ownership of it. And then they played well over the second half of the season. And so is great in the play-in, if I remember correctly. And there's a fine line between self-assured confidence and being overly cocky and arrogant. And I think Trae may have been walking that line. And Mia may have stepped over that line into the negative aspect of it. And so this will bring him back to earth, put him back in the lab, and make him work harder this offseason. I'll give him this. Miami's a terrific defensive team. But, Nick,
great.
What makes it worse, those numbers you threw up, Kyle Lowry wasn't even there for the last 2 games. And Jimmy Butler wasn't there for the last game. And Trae still was horrible. Now, here's why, like you said, he's still a star. I had him 3rd team All-NBA. I still feel great about that.
Deservedly
you
so.
take none of that away from him. Right. But the reason he takes a step back is because people were going overboard. You talked about some think he's a superstar. He's not in club superstar. There were people saying that he's as good as Luka. Like debating
that
who won that trade on draft day, right?
Yeah.
Like it worked out great for both teams. Atlanta got what they needed. Dallas got what, no, Luka's better. All right. There were some, I think I take Trae over Ja Morant. I really would. Ja's better.
Yeah.
So this brings Trae back to where he belongs, which is a star. He's a great player, but he's got ways to go. And there's levels to this. And Luka and Ja are on a higher level than Trae.
Yeah, and there's levels to the Eastern Conference. And when you look at the Eastern Conference landscape, even though they made the conference finals last year, the Hawks are stuck in the morass a bit of teams that might be good in the future, but right now are good-ish, like the Cavs and like the Nets. Like one day they might be really good, but right now they're, what they are, what they've been the last couple of years. At least those 2 of those teams have good young players. Other teams might be a little over the hill. We'll see. But yeah, you look at these, and this is why it's tough and why Trae has to take a leap that won't necessarily show up in the statistics. The playoff statistics, obviously, you hope would bounce back. But Wilds, because you look at the East and you say the Bucks aren't going anywhere. The Celtics are not going anywhere. The Heat are so deep, well-coached, and good that they can look at a Game 5 in the playoffs and they're like, Jimmy, take some extra time. Do you really think Jimmy Butler couldn't play yesterday, or they were extra cautious because they're like, okay, we can beat you without Jimmy Butler, and they were right. And then Philly, even though there is a lot of tumult in Philly right now, they still have Joel bleeping Embiid. And that's before you even get to the Bulls, who were really good this year until it fell apart on them. So I think for Atlanta, the best way and most obvious way for them to get to the next level, which was a similar level to where they appeared to be headed last year, is Trae does have to get better. And here is where those offensive numbers, Wilds, are even more damning than they look. He has to be one of the 5 best offensive players in the sport in order to be one of the 15 best players in the sport. Does that make sense? He is such a liability defensively.
Because defense,
that his offense has to be so transcendent. I mean, what Brew mentioned Luka. Luka is not a good defender, but Luka doesn't kill you on defense. Luka is not like, if Luka's out there, we got to help. Luka is passable defensively. Trae is going to have to work his ass off to get to passable, and I don't even know if he can get there. So his offense has to almost always be great for him to have a chance to be great.
Yeah, he's got a little Isaiah Thomas to him when you would do the defensive rankings. It was like Trae Young, Isaiah Thomas. Here's a weird theory I want your quick take on because we're up against it.
The little Isaiah Thomas. Yeah, not the
young Isaiah Thomas. All right, quick take. I want your take on, Brew. I think Trae needs to get slightly more boring. Led the league in total points, led the league in assists, led the league in shots. That's my own proprietary statistic. But you can watch a homestand of Trae Young and see more amazing, weird shots go in than you have in Ray Allen's entire career. I just want basic stuff from Trae, and I think he'd become a better shooter, more efficient shooter if he eliminated some of these wow plays, but I don't know if he wants to. I think there's a little bit of ego to it that he can make those shots, that he can be the New York villain, that I don't think he's willing to eliminate those wow plays, that it might be better for him to take a boring shot. What do you think about Trae actually playing a little bit more boring?
No, you're right. I agree. That's what I was alluding to with that fine line between confidence and a negative arrogance and cockiness. And this will help him in that regard, because a lot of young players have that if they can do that, if they have that in their bag. But then when you keep losing and people start criticizing you, and people aren't just praising you for all your individual stuff, and they're saying, yeah, but he can't win. Yeah, but their team's terrible. That's when you realize, all right, I have to play winning basketball. And I think Trae Young that'll begin to sink in this summer as he's sitting at home watching the playoffs.
Got that little cameo in the State Farm commercial. Hey, KD couldn't score many points on Jason Tatum, so he moved on to Barkley. We'll discuss next.